Imagine a mountain village in southern Spain, nestled among the slopes of the Sierra Nevada, where the mayor issues a decree so surreal that it sounds like satire. But it is quite literal. It is hereby forbidden to die here. In 1999, in the small town of Lanjarón, in the province of Granada, Andalusia, Spain, the then mayor, José Rubio, issued this extraordinary municipal edict because the town's only cemetery had reached capacity and no new land had been secured for expansion. On its face, the decree seems absurd. How can you ban death? But the story behind it reveals something deeper. The collision of traditions for burying the dead, a scarcity of space, an aging rural community, and the structural challenge of burial infrastructure in modern Spain. Over the next 40 minutes, we will travel to Lanjarón, trace the events that led to the death ban, explore how burial practices in Spain are changing, especially the rise of vertical graves and wall niches, and reflect on what this says about memory space and mortality. Because in Lanjarón, death was literally put on hold, but the legacy lives on. Nestled 659 meters above sea level in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, Lanjarón is a mountain village in Andalusia's Granada province. Historically, the region has been known for its mineral-rich springs. People came for healing, for rest, for wellness. But like many rural towns in Spain, by the late 20th century, Lanjarón faced demographic pressures. An aging population, modest growth, limited flat terrain for expansion, and municipal infrastructure that struggled to keep pace with changing realities. It was into this landscape, picturesque yet constrained, traditional yet facing modern pressures, that the accidental drama of the death ban emerged. By the late 1990s, the only municipal cemetery in Lanjarón had reached capacity. Municipal authorities repeatedly requested land, asked for expansion from regional governments, but the approvals were delayed. A normal graveyard had no more space. Frustrated by stalled bureaucracy and facing the prospect that the dead would no longer have available plots, Mayor José Rubio took a bold symbolic step. In 1999, he issued a municipal decree that stated, in effect, "It is hereby forbidden to die in Lanjarón." Rubio later explained, "I am just a mayor. Above me there is God, who is ultimately the one who runs things." He admitted the edict was partly tongue-in-cheek, partly serious. Everyone has taken the edict with a sense of humor and a strong desire to comply with it. Though no one was ever prosecuted or fined for dying, the move captured national and international attention. Suddenly, Lanjarón, a village of around 4,000 residents, became the town where death is banned. On its surface, it may look absurd, but the decree was a vivid symbol of a real problem. When a community lacks burial space, the infrastructure of death collides with the infrastructure of life. One element that underlies the story is the rise of vertical burial forms across Spain. Wall niches, stacked tombs, compact graveyard designs, driven by limited land, urban pressure, and demographic change. For example, in the nearby region of Madrid, the village of San Martín de Valdeiglesias built vertical niche walls when its cemetery filled and coffins piled up. Academic research calls this phenomenon vertical cemeteries, a changing paradigm in how societies deal with burial when horizontal land runs out. In Lanjarón, the visual logic is clear. Mountain terrain, shrinking flat land, and a single graveyard infrastructure for decades. The ban on death became an act of protest, but also a signal of the larger cultural shift in burial practice. The decree worked in the sense that it generated attention. It shifted the conversation from, "Oh, the cemetery is full," to, "This town says you cannot die until we fix it." Media outlets both in Spain and internationally picked up the story. Over time, the no dying narrative took on layers. It was quirky, ironic, humorous, but also poignant. A wellness town famed for its springs told its people, "Please keep living, while we figure out how to bury you." More than 25 years later, in 2025, the story resurfaced as a viral internet anecdote. Yet the underlying issue, the missing expansion of the graveyard, remains ambiguous. Reports suggest Lanjarón still only has one graveyard within its municipal limits. To understand the burial side more deeply, across Spain and Europe, when ground burial space becomes scarce, municipalities increasingly turn to Vertical forms, niches in walls, stacked crypts, multi-layered tombs. In urban contexts, this is familiar. In rural or mountainous towns, less so. The research paper on the vertical cemeteries, a changing paradigm, explains that as populations grow and land becomes scarce, burial typologies adapt, height rather than footprint. In the story of Lanjarón, though the public focus is the death ban, the burial crisis is implicitly about shift. If the village cannot expand horizontally, what will it do? Build upwards? Delay burials? Outsource to neighboring municipalities? All are part of the underlying infrastructure story. Thus, the narrative of vertical graves becomes both literal in other towns and metaphorical in Lanjarón's crisis. The village may not have yet built towering vaults, but its decree signals the pressure that leads to verticalization of civil death space. For the people of Lanjarón, the edict had everyday resonance. Older residents reportedly found the decree somewhat unsettling. One local noted that many were extremely upset and frustrated because we believed we had to find other areas where to bury our deceased. Meanwhile, the town's identity as a health and wellness destination added another layer of irony. A place celebrated for longevity, telling people, please live a while longer because there's no burial space yet. The famous mineral springs, spa culture and wellness tourism in Lanjarón give context to the dramatic statement. Thus, the story becomes one of how a small community perceives death, burial, tradition, and how space and infrastructure intervene. The rituals of burial, family tombs, visits to graves, generations buried in the same location, were confronted by a new reality. If land is filled, the tradition must adapt. According to recent reporting, by 2025, the town's death ban remains more symbolic than enforced. No one has been penalized, and the statute appears not to have been formally repealed. However, it remains unclear whether the cemetery capacity issue was fully resolved. Reports indicate the town still has only one graveyard within municipal limits. In this way, the edict has become part of the town's identity. A curious historical footnote, a viral internet factoid, and a symbolic marker of infrastructure failure and cultural shift. From a broader perspective, it illustrates the intersection of space, death, tradition, and modernity. When the living cannot expand the place of the dead, they issue a decree. When the dead cannot lie in their usual way, the community faces a new form of bury. And now, the twist. The village of Lanjarón, known for its healing springs and reputation for long life, effectively told its residents, "Don't die yet, our cemetery is full." It is ironic. It is poetic. But the lesson is real, because death is not just biological. It is spatial. It demands land, infrastructure, ritual, memory. And when the land runs out, the ritual must change, or the community must protest. In Lanjarón, death was banned not to fool people, but to force attention. We need land, we need infrastructure, we need space for the dead. The ban did not stop death, but it exposed the limits of our burial traditions. From the rise of vertical graves in Spain's cities to stacked niches to reuse of graves, the story shows a paradigm shift. Horizontal ground plots are no longer always viable. Architecture of death must adapt. Ultimately, the legacy of this village is twofold. First, that infrastructure neglect, cemeteries full, bureaucracy slow, can manifest in profound and seemingly absurd ways. And second, that our relationship with death, burial, and memory is more vulnerable than we imagine. We like to think of graves as eternal, but land is finite, and traditions may need redesign. So, what do we carry away from this story? That death is inevitable, but how we honor it, how we bury our dead, how we remember, depends on space, culture, and our willingness to adapt. Lanjarón's "Don't Die Here" decree may be a quirky headline, but the real message is about living and dying in a changing world. If you walk its streets today, you'll still see the springs, the old spa, the whitewashed houses on the hillside. You might even hear someone say with a wink, "Remember, we're still on hold." Because in Lanjarón, they once legislated immortality, not by stopping death, but by shining a spotlight on the space for the dead. Thank you for joining this exploration of a village that challenged the rules of death. May we remember that the resting place of the dead is also a reflection of how we live.